The courtroom was in complete shock as Diddy completely broke down. His composure shattered in front of the judge, the attorneys, and the public. This was the moment everything changed. Witnesses inside the courtroom described the scene as absolute chaos, the kind of moment you only see in movies. Gasps filled the room as explosive new evidence was revealed, leaving Diddy visibly shaken, his head in his hands, struggling to process what just happened. According to insider sources, the leaked evidence includes emails, text messages, and audio recordings that directly implicate Diddy in the allegations against him.
Diddy has gotten a big shakeup on his legal team, or at least that is how people are reading it. Remember, he is less than 3 months away from his federal case going into court, and one of his attorneys filed documents this morning withdrawing from the case. Anthony Rico filed these documents and said that he can no longer effectively, that's a quote, can no longer effectively represent Diddy. He said, "Under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel for Sean Combs, consistent with the ABA standards for criminal justice."
Obviously pretty shocking with, his trial approaching just a few months away, but obviously it's not his lead counsel, but we're told, we spoke to some people that are familiar with the case, and essentially the reason why he bailed was that he just had no relationship with Diddy and just felt like he wasn't close enough to him to effectively defend him in this case.
The evidence, which was presented in court earlier today, reportedly reveals shocking details about Diddy's behavior and the extent of his alleged misconduct. As the evidence was presented, Diddy was seen visibly shaken, and moments later, he broke down in tears, unable to contain his emotions. The judge was forced to call a recess to restore order, but the damage may already be done. One source described the atmosphere in the courtroom as electric, with everyone hanging on every word of the evidence.
It is necessary for me to make this explanation brief because I don't want to violate attorney-client privilege.
Right.
But that what we are being told makes it sound like there was some issue, something or someone would not allow him to get as close to Diddy and get the information he needed from Diddy.
Right. To therefore effectively defend him. But I don't know. A lot of people, Charles, are going to look at this. They're going to say, okay, does this mean that he doesn't believe that Diddy's innocent? I think it's hurtful to their case.
Right.
Maybe not in court,
and
but
because he
public.
can't say that, because he can't say what it is,
Yeah.
You're right. It allows the public, has all sorts of things going through their head. We did talk to some people close to Diddy who told us that they're not in any crisis, as some people have painted it. They said they think there's not much to see here because his lead counsel, his two lead counselors, Mark Agnifilo and Tenny Garagos, have been on the case for almost a year and nothing has changed.
But what exactly was this evidence? And why is it so damaging that even his own legal team is now in full-blown crisis mode? For weeks, Diddy's attorneys have been doing everything in their power to protect him, throwing out motions, trying to suppress key pieces of evidence. But this was different. This evidence was undeniable, irrefutable, and impossible to explain away. Social media has exploded with reactions to the news, with hashtags like #DiddyBreakdown and #ExplosiveEvidence trending worldwide.
Powered defense attorneys for Sean Diddy Combs are fighting back against the federal government, and in a major way. Actually, so major that if they are successful, this whole case, this whole criminal prosecution could be upended. And that is crazy to think about, considering this trial is right around the corner, May 5th, 2025. But to be more specific, what the defense is asking for right now is to make sure a future jury doesn't see a lot of evidence that it says the government gathered through improper search warrants. And we are hearing all kinds of new bits of information, including who was interviewed, whether they were able to corroborate the claims the government is making. This is a big deal. Now, as you know, Sean Combs, behind bars in New York, facing charges of racketeering conspiracy, trafficking through force, fraud, or coercion, transportation to engage in prostitution, currently locked up at the Metropolitan Detention Center until his trial in May. And we first learned that Combs was likely under investigation when agents with the Department of Homeland Security.
Fans of the music mogul are expressing shock and concern, while critics are calling the evidence a smoking gun that could finally bring justice to his accusers. The revelations have reignited debates about Diddy's innocence or guilt, with many questioning how this new evidence will impact the outcome of the case. Memes, tweets, and videos are flooding the internet as people dissect every detail of the leaked evidence and speculate about what it means for Diddy's future.
And that's where the defense says the agents went wrong. When they applied for the search warrant applications, the defense says they were just too broad. They allowed the agents to go through everything without being specific. The defense also says that when they were applying, they gave the magistrate judge who approved the warrants kind of an incomplete picture. They excluded things that could have been helpful to Sean Combs, and they included some salacious details, the defense said, from an unnamed producer who the defense says just wasn't credible.
Let's talk about that unnamed producer. The defense is disputing claims from a producer they've described as an utterly unreliable witness who was never credible. So, Brian, how do you think the judge is going to assess this?
So whenever you hear about suppression, trying to keep up evidence and credibility of a witness, what they're talking about is called a Frank's hearing. It's basically saying that the information that was given to the magistrate judge either had omissions or lies in them. And if the judge had all the proper information, the defense is making the argument that they would not have gotten that search warrant.
Legal experts are calling it a game changer. Some are even saying that Diddy's case may now be completely unsalvageable. Let's take a closer look at how this story unfolded. Diddy, whose real name is Sean Combs, was arrested and charged earlier this year following a series of allegations that have rocked the music industry. The charges range from workplace harassment to more serious claims of abuse, and the case has been one of the most closely watched legal battles in recent memory.
The potential evidence. At the time, Combs hadn't been arrested or charged yet, but just a few months before that, in November of 2023, Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassandra Ventura, filed an explosive lawsuit claiming Combs abused her mentally, physically, during their tumultuous 10-year relationship. Combs ended up settling that lawsuit just one day after it was filed for an unknown sum of money, but the damage was already done. Ventura's allegations, they were out there in the public. A wave of other civil lawsuits followed, and then in September of 2024, Combs was officially arrested at the Park Hyatt Hotel in New York City. His lawyer said he'd come to New York to turn himself in, but the police arrested him a day early. And according to authorities, Combs, reportedly being under investigation for criminal behavior, hadn't stopped him from allegedly having drugs in his hotel room. And as I said, Combs has been locked up. He's been denied bond ever since. Combs offered up a huge bail package worth millions of dollars, but the government argued there was evidence that Combs was trying to influence, maybe intimidate witnesses, even from behind bars.
Diddy has consistently denied the allegations, calling them false and defamatory. But the leaked evidence has cast serious doubt on his claims. The evidence, which was reportedly obtained through a combination of legal discovery and private investigations, includes emails and text messages that appear to show Diddy discussing inappropriate behavior with associates. Audio recordings also reveal conversations that allegedly support the claims of manipulation and control made by his accusers.
But now, let's talk about what's happening now. His defense team has argued that multiple search warrants used to find potential evidence against him and used to indict him were way too broad, and that some of the information investigators found actually goes against their case, that these search warrants were invalid. Okay? And over the weekend, new filings from the defense, they were added to Combs' federal docket. A notice to suppress evidence obtained through search warrants, a memorandum of law to support suppressing certain evidence, and a declaration from one of Combs' attorneys, Teni Garagos Krishnaswamy, have all been filed. Okay? And that's what we're going to dig into now. What are the arguments here? Because this could have major implications. So what the defense is looking for, according to their notice, is, quote, an order suppressing the evidence and all fruits obtained from the following search warrants. Again, meaning it wouldn't come into evidence. A jury wouldn't see it. The prosecution couldn't use this evidence.
His attorney looked absolutely helpless. Sources inside the courtroom claim that as soon as the evidence was presented, Diddy's entire defense strategy collapsed. One witness described the moment, saying, "You could see it in his attorney's face. Pure panic. He was flipping through papers, whispering to his team, but there was nothing they could do. The damage was already done." Diddy himself? He was shaking his head, muttering under his breath.
Amp up the amount of searches that the prison staff would make throughout. I mean, P. Diddy is a pretty big name. Obviously, we know that he's talking to the other inmates around him. Would then MDC staff be keeping an eye on his specific cell, maybe more than others?
No, I think each staff member that works each unit on a shift, there's 3 shifts in every day, and they're charged with doing cell searches, or in his case, area searches or bed searches, because he'd either be on the top or the bottom bunk, and his belongings would more than likely be under the bottom bunk along with his bunkmate. So obviously there's going to be more eyes on his area. And again, there are a specific number of searches that they should be doing on a daily basis. And I'm sure his area is probably going to be more monitored. And more than likely, a lot of times what inmates would do, they would try to put some of their belongings or things that they don't want to be seen.
Some say it looked like he was even talking to himself, unable to believe what he was hearing. Others claim that, at one point, he slammed his fist down on the table, his emotions boiling over. The evidence, which was played in court earlier today, is said to be a pivotal moment in the case. In one particularly chilling segment, Diddy is heard discussing activities that align with the accusations made against him. The recordings also reveal a side of Diddy that the public has never seen before.
As far as this goes, though, with him going to the hospital, is it different? I mean, would he be in his jumpsuit? Would he have cuffs? Would there be somebody with him at all times, even when he's in the MRI? What would that look like?
What would happen, he would definitely go out in his institutional jumpsuit. He would be handcuffed, leg irons, and what we call a Martin chain, which is the waist, the chains around your waist, handcuffs, and then what we call a black box. That would be a little mechanism that would go over the handcuffs to make sure that he is not moving around necessarily. And I'm almost certain that they probably had 3 or 4 staff with him, and even possibly someone in a different vehicle, what we call a chase vehicle, just to make sure that everything is secure and everything is well in that regard. Now, in terms of the X-ray, I'm sure whatever cuffs that would need to be taken off.
One that contradicts his carefully crafted image as a successful businessman and philanthropist. Legal experts are calling the evidence a game changer, suggesting that it could lead to a conviction if admitted in court. The judge overseeing the case has yet to rule on the admissibility of the evidence, but the damage to Diddy's public image may already be irreversible. But what makes this evidence so explosive? According to inside sources, this wasn't just any piece of information. It was the kind of evidence that destroys careers, dismantles reputations, and sends people straight to prison.
And the big headline here is that now they are saying there are 2 more victims, 2 more women that the feds are calling victims of Diddy and his criminal operation as they've laid it out in this indictment. Remember, before, all they had was victim 1, and we know through things that have been said in court and that are connecting victim 1 to the videotaped beating of Cassie. So we know that victim 1 is Cassie. Victims 2 and 3, who have now been added in this new document, we don't know their identities, but the feds have described them, saying that they are women that he transported, that Diddy transported for purposes of putting them. And they lay out some of the allegations and why they believe that these women are victims. Diddy is telling a different story, has a different view of this, but first, what they said in the indictment.
Friends and associates of Diddy have been quick to defend him, calling the evidence fabricated and taken out of context. They insist that Diddy is the victim of a smear campaign designed to tarnish his reputation and legacy. However, others close to the case suggest that the evidence is credible and could have a significant impact on the outcome. The emotional toll on Diddy was evident as he sat in court, visibly shaken by the revelations.
Anticipated amount of discovery and the expected time required for its production, Mr. Combs will be unable to adduce the identities of the purported victims from the discovery without the assistance of the government. Mr. Combs also anticipates that the discovery will contain voluminous evidence of consensual activity, making it all the more difficult for Mr. Combs to ascertain which of his prior partners now claim, years later, that they felt coerced. Even if it were possible to ascertain the victim's identity from the discovery, and especially given the volume of anticipated discovery, it is unfair to require Mr. Combs to spend significant time trying to unearth the alleged victims' identities. Now, the prosecution asked for a little bit more time to respond to the defense's letter, which the judge granted. And then at the end of October, the government submitted its own filing, which included some details about its investigation so far, the sheer volume of information they were gathering. It reads, to date, the grand jury has issued over 300 subpoenas, and the government has interviewed over 50 witnesses, several of whom testified before.
One witness described him as pale and trembling, a far cry from the confident and charismatic figure the world is used to seeing. This is the evidence that his legal team has been terrified of. And now, it's out in the open for everyone to see. Social media is already blowing up over this, with people dissecting every single detail. Fans are divided. Some are saying Diddy's reaction proves his guilt, while others are insisting that he was set up. This isn't just a story about Diddy. It's about the broader issues of power and accountability in the entertainment industry.
The prosecution is doing everything in their power to make sure that these tapes do not get out in any which way. It goes on to say, quote, the individuals permitted to view the footnote 3 material are limited to retained defense experts, witnesses who are depicted in the footnote 3 material, and defense counsel or personnel for whose conduct defense counsel is responsible. The footnote 3 material will only be shown to or viewed by the individuals in categories above or in person on a computer that does not connect to the internet. The footnote 3 material or any portions thereof will not be viewed on a computer connected to the internet, any video conferencing platform, or shared via the internet in any way. So what happens to these apparent tapes once the trial is over? Well, the addendum addresses that too. Quote, within 1 week following either the jury's verdict or the defendant's plea of guilty, Agnifilo Intrader LLP will return the 2 drives containing the footnote 3 material and any enhanced versions to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, which will maintain custody of the drives.
The explosive evidence has sparked important conversations about how victims of abuse are treated and whether the legal system is equipped to uncover the truth. Some are calling for reforms to ensure that all evidence is thoroughly reviewed, while others argue that Diddy's situation is a consequence of his alleged actions. The case has also raised questions about the role of privilege and influence in the justice system, with many wondering whether Diddy's wealth and status have shielded him from accountability for too long.
Her complaint, another Jane Doe filed her own. Now, this Jane Doe claims she was offered $2,000 to serve as a bottle service girl at one of Diddy's parties. Then she was given a laced drink and allegedly by Diddy's associate at Diddy's direction. She claims in 1997 she was at a party at Diddy's home in the Hamptons and a friend of hers told her she could earn money working as a bottle girl at the party. Jane Doe claims she was provided a black dress, was told to wait in a separate room before she could come out to the main party. While she and the others waited, Diddy came into the room and encouraged everyone to drink from the coolers. Jane Doe claims after one drink she started feeling woozy, slipping in and out of consciousness, but she remembered seeing Diddy's male associates, who she claims assaulted and raped her at Diddy's direction while he was there. Doe says she recalls seeing Diddy naked at one point and witnessed another man sodomizing him. Now, this Jane Doe believes her rape had been videotaped. She says she reached out to Diddy to delete the video, but he refused. From this complaint, it looks like the 2 Jane Does I mentioned in this story, their allegations are seemingly connected.
But let's be real. If his own attorneys are struggling to contain the damage, what does that tell you? Prosecutors are wasting no time. Reports suggest they are already moving to capitalize on this massive courtroom bombshell, potentially pushing for even harsher consequences. As the case continues to unfold, one question looms large. What's next for Diddy? Will the explosive evidence lead to a conviction? Or will his legal team find a way to discredit it?
And consent is between the people that are engaging, and I wasn't there in these situations to understand the consent.
The new interview, part of Investigation Discovery's docuseries, The Fall of Diddy.
My job is to shield his private life from the public.
Pines even sharing audio he says is of Diddy telling Pines to bring him various substances during those Wild King nights.
Phil, I need some Cialis. Can you give me 20 Xanax, please? Hey, Phil, I need a plan B.
I remember hearing the words, "Prove your loyalty to me, King." He grabbed me by the shoulders, pushed me to a girl that was on the couch.
The alleged parties similar to the infamous freak-offs detailed in the federal charges against the star, where women were allegedly forced to perform sexual acts with Combs and others, often under the influence of drugs.
In the moment, it just felt like, what?
And how will this emotional breakdown impact his case and public image? For now, all eyes are on the courtroom as the world waits to see how this story will unfold. Legal experts suggest that the evidence could be the tipping point in the case, potentially swaying public opinion and even influencing the judge's decision. At the same time, Diddy's team is reportedly working around the clock to counter the damaging evidence, but the road ahead looks increasingly difficult.
The influence, the prestige, the resources of Sean Combs. Keep that in mind. But I will tell you what I find interesting, and I'll get into the legal point of this, why that opening paragraph's important. It almost reads like the criminal indictment that Combs is facing out in New York, where he's charged with the federal crimes of racketeering conspiracy, trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, transportation to engage in prostitution. It is so similar. Namely, prosecutors allege that he used his business empire and his resources to abuse and traffic women, including through commercial acts, and that this criminal enterprise that he was allegedly running engaged in a long list of crimes, not just trafficking, but forced labor, arson. That's what prosecutors have been alleging. But again, this lawsuit mirrors that. And by the way, little side note also before we continue. Sean Combs has denied all wrongdoing. Okay, he has denied all of the criminal charges. He has denied all of the allegations in all of his lawsuits. He says he's looking forward to his day in court.
And here's where things get even worse for Diddy. His former allies are turning on him. People who once stood by him are now distancing themselves, refusing to defend him. Some former associates are even speaking out, saying they saw this coming a long time ago. So what happens next? Legal analysts believe Diddy's team will try to challenge this evidence, argue technicalities, anything to slow down the case. But here's the problem. When something this big gets revealed in open court, the damage is already done.
There are two questions that matter here. Did the government intentionally invade Combs' relationship with his counsel? If so, has Combs been prejudiced? Meaning, was the case now tainted against Combs in some way, right? Well, Subramanian writes, under the circumstances here, assuming without concluding that a portion of the unredacted notes was privileged, there are no grounds for relief. Okay, why? Well, first, Judge Subramanian concludes that the government didn't intentionally invade Combs' privilege. Quote, it is undisputed that the photograph notepads were separate and apart from a manila folder that was clearly marked legal. Investigator 1 didn't search that folder. While Combs initially told the court that the photograph notepads were marked legal as well, the defense retreated from this position when confusion developed over when the handwritten legal labels had been added to the notepads. That's true, I remember that. We covered this court hearing live.
The leaked evidence has also had a profound impact on Diddy's family and close associates. Sources close to the Combs family reveal that they've been left reeling by the revelations, with some struggling to reconcile the man they know with the person heard in the recordings. Diddy's children, who have largely remained silent throughout the legal battle, are said to be devastated by the latest developments. One insider described the family as heartbroken and in shock, adding that they're doing their best to support Diddy during this difficult time.
Far from an intentional, prosecution-driven invasion into Combs' relationship with his attorneys, the record shows that Investigator 1 was doing his job as a BOP intelligence analyst and followed the established channels for reporting communications that pose safety concerns. The case team was informed of these communications when appropriate and similarly followed the established channels for obtaining information and protecting Combs' privilege. Care was taken to shield Combs' communications with his attorneys from the case team. None of this suggests that Investigator 1 deliberately set out to or was instructed to invade Combs' attorney-client relationship and impede his defense. Now, there is one final piece we got to talk about here. The prejudice argument. You remember I mentioned that? To see if there was a Sixth Amendment violation, it's not just if there was intentional interference, but was Combs prejudiced? Judge Subramanian again says no. He concludes that even if there was,
his reputation is crumbling. His business deals in jeopardy. And now, with this courtroom breakdown making headlines everywhere, it's looking more and more like there's no way out for Diddy. Could this be the end for him? Is this the moment that finally seals his fate? One thing is for sure, this case is only getting crazier. And if you thought this was shocking, just wait, because more bombshells are coming. This case is also having a ripple effect across the entertainment industry.
The complaint says Mr. Combs had long-standing, deep personal relationships with Ms. Porter, Mr. Wallace, Mr. Harrell, and Mr. Myers. He was heartbroken by their untimely deaths and the completely unfounded accusation that he murdered multiple of his closest confidants is deeply distressing, offensive, reckless, and malicious. So the complaint then circles back to Porter's death from lobar pneumonia, saying the documentary gives additional credence to these dangerous and damaging lies about Miss Porter's death. For example, it features commentary by an attorney, Ariel Mitchell, who rhetorically asks, who's dying from pneumonia? Seriously, pneumonia? And to die so quickly? Notwithstanding the coroner's report to the contrary, Mitchell ridicules the idea that Miss Porter died of natural causes, saying, people get pneumonia every day and don't die. That doesn't seem like a natural cause. Now, we spoke with Ariel Mitchell here on Sidebar about alleged tapes that she claims.
Many of Diddy's former collaborators and business partners are now distancing themselves from him, fearing that their own reputations could be tarnished by association. Some are even calling for a broader investigation into the music industry, arguing that Diddy's case is just the tip of the iceberg. The leaked evidence has reignited debates about the culture of silence and complicity in Hollywood, with many calling for greater transparency and accountability. And let's talk about the aftermath of Diddy's public courtroom breakdown.
This secret for like 14 years. I mean, the first time I experienced it was 2010, and I was in the hotel room when Puff came in, and I had no idea Cassie left. And when I woke up, I just saw his presence come into the room. They went into the bedroom and shut the door, and all I could hear is screaming and yelling and whatever was going on in there, I don't know. But all I could think of was to grab Cassie's things and start packing it up and just getting her out to safety and bringing her to my house. So that's kind of like what transpired from that night. And once she came out of the room, she was badly, beaten.
Oh my God, what did her...
Legal analysts are calling this one of the most damning moments of his entire career. Some are even saying that this could force him into a plea deal, something his team has been desperately trying to avoid. So why did Diddy react this way? Could it be that he knows what's coming next? That more evidence is on its way? And that this case is about to get even worse for him? One insider claims that Diddy's team has been bracing for this moment for weeks. According to leaked reports, there is a mountain of evidence still being held back by the prosecution, waiting for the perfect moment to be revealed.
All the way around with the previous lawsuits we've heard about, it also echoes some of the information that we know, or possible facts that we know, will be raised in the federal prosecution. So this is not a surprise at all.
Yeah, and Tony Busby said he planned to file about 10 lawsuits in the next week, pretty much before that March 1st deadline, the last day the New York law allows victims to file civil lawsuits despite the expired statute of limitations. So talk to me a little bit about that law, and possibly if that law didn't even exist, would we even be having this conversation right now?
So with respect to that law, it gives people the opportunity to bring about these lawsuits who have previously been assaulted or abused or have allegations of such, and it allows them to recover damages because of those allegations. So it's almost like a safety net or a catch-all for individuals who have had these experiences to be able to come back and litigate or to get some sort of justice in their minds.
As we wait for the next chapter in this unfolding drama, one thing is clear. This is a story that will have far-reaching consequences. Whether you're a fan of Diddy or a critic of his alleged actions, there's no denying that this case is a watershed moment for the entertainment industry. It's a reminder that no one is above the law, and that the truth has a way of coming to light, no matter how powerful the person involved may be. And if this single bombshell piece of evidence was enough to leave him completely broken in court, just imagine what's coming next.
But basically, this was the essence of it. Free Puff.
Okay.
And
that was it's an interesting take. He apparently has he's had a relationship with him. And Diddy hasn't gotten a lot of that. So he responded to it.
Yeah, on his Instagram account. I'm not sure exactly how.
I was wondering that myself.
He has access.
I was wondering that myself.
Maybe he told someone to do it. But anyway, So thank you to my brother Ye, easy.com. So yeah, celebrating it.
So,
to be fair to Diddy,
Diddy
I know
did-
is something you don't hear a lot these days.
Diddy didn't know what was coming.
He did not know the firestorm that was about to come because Ye was just getting warmed up. And this is where it gets really just insane. This is what he started to say about, this has always been, he's always framed this as he doesn't like the business deals that he's made with Jewish people.
One witness inside the courtroom said, "I've seen a lot of high-profile cases, but I have never seen someone react like that in open court." That was the moment Diddy realized he might not walk away from this. And the public fallout? It's getting worse by the hour. Major brands are cutting ties. Business partners are backing away. And even some of his closest allies in the industry are now refusing to comment on the situation. And here's the biggest question of all. Who leaked this evidence?
During his bail appeal, NBC reporters inside the courtroom report that Assistant U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson read out loud the text that Diddy reportedly sent to Cassie Ventura after an altercation in a hotel in 2016. She references security video of the event that went public, showing Diddy hitting his then-girlfriend in a hotel hallway. The text from Diddy at the time read, quote, "Call me, the cops are here. I got 6 kids. Yo, please call, I'm surrounded. You gonna abandon me all alone?" The assistant U.S. attorney argues in court that, quote, the defendant knew he had done something that could elicit police response. She stated that if the music producer were freed from jail, it may prevent witnesses from testifying against him, and denied his bail a second time. E! News has reached out to reps for Cassie and Diddy for comment and has not yet heard back. The texts were brought up in relation to the federal indictment against the music mogul, which alleges that, quote, for decades, Diddy abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his desires.
Because according to inside sources, this wasn't supposed to come out yet. Someone wanted this information to be made public. Someone wanted to make sure that the world saw Diddy's reaction in real time. Could it have been a former associate? Someone who's now working with prosecutors behind the scenes? Or could it have been a deliberate move by the legal team to force Diddy into a last-minute deal? One thing's for sure. This wasn't an accident. This was calculated. And now, with the world watching...
It's surprising because if you read the body of the complaint doesn't actually allege that the individual who was victimized was an employee at Macy's. Instead, it alleges that he was in a Macy's store. He was in the back room, maybe the stock room, working as a consultant for Echo. Not sure why he'd be in the back room, but he was. And he alleges that P. Diddy, Sean Combs, comes to the back room with 3 bodyguards. One of the bodyguards apparently hits him on the side of the neck, causes him to go down on his knees, and then, unfortunately, Mr. Combs allegedly forces him to have sex. He doesn't actually allege that Macy's did anything prior to the event, the purported unlawful event, to cause any wrongdoing or any assault or any or cause him to experience.
Diddy is officially running out of time. With more leaks expected and even bigger revelations rumored to be on the way, the question is no longer if Diddy will survive this, but how much worse will it get before he finally breaks? Stay tuned, because the next chapter in this saga is coming, and when it does, it might just be the final nail in the coffin. And if you think this is bad, just wait. Because this case is about to take an even darker turn.